The views on a Breath of Fresh Air podcast reflects the parties involved, and we encourage you all to use it as a conversational tool that will lead to personal studies of your own.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Welcome to a Breath of Fresh Air podcast. Here with your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz Gay. As a young person, Christianity can be so foggy, like smoke in the mirrors and so unclear. But we're here to bring you a breath of fresh air.
David!
Where have you come from?
I've escaped from the camp of Israel.
Huh? Tell me what happened.
Okay, so the people, we all fled from the battle, and many of them are dead. Even Jonathan and Saul.
What? How do you know that Saul and his son are dead?
Okay, so it just so happened that I was on Mount Gilboa as well, and there was Saul, and he was leaning on his spear. And when I looked up, I saw the chariots of the Philistine, and they were gaining on him, and they were coming faster and faster and faster to kill him. And he turned to me and he said, "Who are you?" And I told him, I'm your servant. I'm an Amalekite. And then he said, "Stand over me and kill me, for my anguish has come upon me." And he was in so much pain that I just wanted to take him out of his misery. So I stood over him and I killed him, because I was sure that he could not have survived the wound from his spear. And then when he was dead, I took his crown and his bracelet, and now I have brought them to you, my lord.
So Saul and Jonathan are... They're dead? No! No! Jonathan. Oh my! Hold on. Where are you from again?
I'm the son of an alien, my lord. I'm an Amalekite.
So, why weren't you afraid to lift your hand and destroy God's anointed?
He was in pain.
Hey, you there! Go strike down the Amalekite.
Wait! What? Why? What?
Your blood will be on your own head. From your own mouth you testified against you when you said, "I killed the Lord's anointed." Imagine your mortal enemy has finally been defeated. How would you react to that news? This week we'll be focusing on 1 Samuel chapters 31 and 2 Samuel chapter 1. We will be discussing the results of the war between the Israelites and the Philistines. The victor has been decided. Let's see how David reacts to the news. As always, be blessed and enjoy. All right. Welcome back to another episode of A Breath of Fresh Air. My name is Earl Roberts.
My name is Nakhaz Gay.
We ain't even worrying about that next part. So we appreciate everyone who's tuning in again. If you're a weekly listener, a monthly listener, a yearly listener, we just appreciate that you listen. And again, if you like what we do, please share the content with 2 people. Last week I asked for 1. This week I'm asked for 2.
Up in the ante.
Yeah, you got up the ante, man. You got up the ante. You know what I'm saying? Think about it. If we have 50 people listening, that's, just being conservative. We have 50 people listening, right? If each of y'all share it with 2 people, we instantly go from 50 to 150. So, and again, I'm I ain't trying to force you to do it, but if you feel like you're blessing it by some way, shape, or form, if you learn something through the Holy Spirit, because I'm not like me and Nakhaz ain't taking no credit, but definitely share it with a friend or family member or someone who you think would benefit from hearing a conversation like this about, just talking about the Bible and making it fun and exciting.
Yep.
So yeah, weekly thought. Last week we talked about being unapologetically Christian. And this week, I guess I'm gonna just bring it back to something we ain't talked about for a little while. But remember at the beginning of the year, we had like the prayer journal and the prayer list and the prayer received. So I'm just encouraging everyone to keep that up. Hopefully if people are doing it, and people who don't know about it at the beginning of the year, I encouraged everyone to not only write down their prayer requests, but also write down like
answered prayers.
An answered prayer list.
Yeah.
So essentially like you keep track of the things what God has actually blessed you with, and even like kind of unanswered blessings list. And that, because so often we just, when we're going through things, we often forget what God has already answered, what prayers God had already answered for us, and what blessings God had already bestowed upon us. And so I think it's just very crucial. So we're literally at the mid-year point, essentially. Like this episode's coming out July 8th, I think. So
the
second half of the year,
Yep.
This episode 96. So yeah, man, definitely encourage everyone, because you still got a whole half a year left, but God has a whole lot more blessings out there in store for you. And it's so interesting, man, because we was talking about this before part a few hours ago, really, but me and Kaz were just talking about, like, a lot of people say like God doesn't want them, like the devil has people's minds corrupted, thinking like God doesn't want to give you what you want. And in a certain way, like God already told you, like, but seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then all these things should be added unto you. And as Christians, and even just forget Christian part of it, as humans, we know what we want, and the sad thing about it, we want it when we want it. We don't want to wait on God. We don't want to have that trust. We don't have that faith in God. But like, I know it's cliche, but when I was growing up, like Grammy, Mummy, them always say like God used to give you three answers: yes, no, and sometimes wait.
Yep.
And most times God will be telling you wait, and sometimes God does tell you no, because He knows if I give you this, either you're not ready for it, and if you're not ready for it, it's usually a wait. But if He doesn't give it to you, it's probably because it's going to take you away from Him. And as a gracious God, I know what I have prepared for you in heaven. Why am I going to give you something that I know is going to cost you to lose it on your eternal life? So go for it.
And so a lot of times what I tend to think about is that your salvation means the most to God. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And I try to live my life with my salvation being the most important part of my life as well. And so if anything gets in the way of that, you need to cut it off. Like if your right hand offends you or causes you to stumble, cut that off. It's better to go to heaven with one hand, you know what I'm saying, than to go to hell with two able hands. And just based on that principle, I realized what is the most important thing. And so when we ask God for stuff, like, we got to be able to accept that, no good thing will He withhold from you. You know what I'm saying? And if He's withholding from you, we have to take into consideration if it's good or not, and sometimes it can be good, He withholding from you, because you might be you might be taking this good at the expense of having a better. You know what I'm saying? You might be committing to this thing, and God's saying, bro, I have something even better for you. That's like the prosperity message that a lot of people preach. Oh, your best is yet to come or whatever. But it's not wrong though. Sometimes God tells you no because He's trying to give you something better, but sometimes He's telling you no because you need to wait, it's not time yet, or because this thing will not be beneficial for you. And so we just need to be like kind of reflective and kind of open-minded when we petition unto God. But to your point, the prayer answered journal, that I feel like and I must admit, I did not jot down one thing this year. So starting today, I'm gonna actually take the initiative. You know what I'm saying? And so from the rest of this year, I'm gonna make these notes, because the Lord has done a lot for me, and sometimes it feels like kind of braggadocious, just giving your testimony sometimes, so I don't share everything. But I'll be honest with you, the Lord has blessed me in ways that I did not see happening so soon,
Amen. And even to that point, like we're gonna go with the story, but even to that point, right? I feel like as Christians, we feel shy about talking to our blessings because we don't want to come across as braggadocious.
And I personally feel if you're really talking about the honor and glory of God, how God has changed your life, it's the devil trying to suppress it.
That's true.
Because if you don't talk about the goodness and the glory of God, who will?
Facts.
Because God wants to use you as a mouthpiece to talk about his goodness and his grace, because through your testimony, that might be someone else would have a faith moment, would have an encouraging moment that, hey, if God has blessed them, I'm going through a similar circumstances, I know God can bring me through. But man, if God has healed me from my sickness, right? And I don't say how God has healed me from my sickness, someone else who's going through the whole thing might be in a completely hopeless situation. And God put it on your heart to share so you can encourage that person to not give up hope. But you hold it in because you let the devil make you feel like, oh, I am one.
Yeah,
I am one. Say my story. I am one. Do that. But again, I feel like we as Christians, we need to get more
honest about it.
honest and open about it.
Yeah.
Like, no, God has blessed us. A good thing. Because we gonna get to those stories soon. They coming up soon. But we gonna see like when people was literally dancing for like David them was dancing the streets because of the goodness and glory how God has blessed them and brought them through the battles. Like that's like praise and giving God the glory. Like, but we don't do that. I feel like, man, even in our church sometimes I feel like people they kind of like diminish it. Like you have to be like so reverent. But praise is a part of.
Right, praise is what God asks for.
Like he asks for praise.
Yeah, he asks for praise. So, and I'll just give a little bit of context. And I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but sometimes I just don't want to be a stumbling block to others who struggling with covetousness. You know what I'm saying? So, like, if I know that me telling you about this new job opportunity that the Lord has blessed me with, if I know that that's going to take you to a dark place because you're a jealous person or a covetous person, and a lot of times you don't know how people receive these things because covetousness, that's something that's very internal. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind of influences me to like not share my story. But at the end of the day, someone being covetous, that don't have nothing to do with me. That don't have nothing to do with God either. You know what I'm saying? Like that should not stop you from giving God the praise and the glory and actually telling the good news of how God spared you from something or how he's blessed you from something, blessed you with something, you know?
So yeah, definitely encourage everyone. Write down your prayer list and actually pray and ask God for these things earnestly and actually like, pray for other people too. And we had said this a long time too. I remember like when we were going through like Abraham and how Abraham would generally like bless people. He was like, I remember you made the comment too, like actually stop blessing people. I said the same thing too, but like to me, like I'm trying to be more conscious of it. Like I still need to do a better job at this in my own personal thing. Like when I talk to someone, I probably ain't gonna talk to you in a little while. Like try to say something encouraging and like a little blessing on them, because honestly, like you never know when it's gonna be the last time you talk to people, especially when you don't talk to them frequently. And it that's just the days we live in. Like it don't make no sense sugarcoat. It don't make no sense like dancing around it. Like sometimes you legitimately just don't know when I'm ever gonna talk to you again. So I might as well try to be a little bit encouraging, a little bit upholding, even if the last thing I say to you. Let it be some form of a blessing so you could take it with you as you go. Because you just never know. But yeah. So this week we're picking back up where we left off last week. Last week we ended with David rescuing his family and his loved ones from the Amalekites, and David not going to war with the Philistines, on the Philistines' side, I should say.
Yeah, he was not allowed to fight with
the Philistines because the Philistine princes and generals, as we would say in the Bahamas, caught sense that maybe this guy shouldn't be fighting alongside us.
It only seems right. Like maybe the historic enemy should not be fighting with us.
Exactly.
That could go wrong.
So that's where we ended. So now we're picking up in 1 Samuel chapter 31. And reading from verse 1. Now the Philistines fought against Israel. And so remember 2 episodes ago, when Saul was in dire straits, that he went to the witch of Endor because the Philistines were coming to fight against the Israelites. And he knew that the Philistines had David on their side. Last week we see how David wasn't allowed to fight against the Philistines. So now in verse 31, we kind of skip across the war. We kind of come into the end of the results of that war.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go for it.
If you remember the episode with the witch of Endor, she was the medium was communicating. The spirit was communicating to Saul that tomorrow you will die. And so basically, David and his fight at Ziklag against David and his men, when they fought the Amalekites, this is happening kind of concurrently with was Saul and the Philistine thing. So from a timeline perspective, David would have met with the Philistines before Saul would have came to the witch at Endor, because they still had to travel 3 days to get back, and then they had to travel further to fight the Amalekites, and they got back to Ziklag all before the Philistines started. But when the Philistine their war with the Hebrews started. But when Saul met with the witch at Endor, it was literally the day before the war. And so just, the Bible is like, it's like a movie, like sometimes they show this scene and then they pan to another scene where something's happening at the same time. And just for context, that's what's happening. So now it's the day after Saul saw the medium. They're in battle now. So that's where we are.
Good context. So now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell slain at Mount Gilboa. Then the Philistines followed hard after Saul and his sons, and the Philistines killed Jonathan. R.I.P. Jonathan, you were a real one. Abinadab and Malchishua.
Who are you, bro? Who are you people?
See, Abinadab, we kind of heard about him before, but Malchishua, we ain't never heard about him. I was like, bro, where you come from?
Right. They never really came up.
He was like the silent partner, bro. Like, he just there in the background.
We knew Jonathan, and this was David's close friend, Jonathan.
Exactly.
We hadn't heard about him. Best friend. They loved each other more than they love any woman, bro. Like, they was tight, bro. Like,
kindred spirits.
Kindred spirits. And so that's a blow. You know what I mean? Because I was, I kind of, when they were talking and Jonathan was like, bro, you're going to be king one day, bro. I just want to be a second in command. I thought that was a precious moment because he showed that he was selfless. And now we see that would never actually happen because Jonathan died in battle.
The battle became fierce against Saul's. The archers hit him, and he was severely wounded by the archers. I got a Bible just... Repeat that.
Yeah.
Just in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
So then Saul said to his armor bearer, draw your sword and thrust me through with it, lest these uncircumcised men come and thrust me through and abuse me. But his armor bearer would not, for he was greatly afraid. Therefore Saul took his own sword and fell on it. And when his armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he also fell on his own sword and died with him. So Saul, his 3 sons, his armor bearer, and all his men died together that same day. I'm going to just finish this right here because this one's pretty short. And when the men of Israel who were on the other side of the valley and those who were on the other side of the Jordan saw that the men of Israel had fled and that Saul and his sons were dead, they forsook their cities and fled. And the Philistines came and dwelt in them. So it happened the next day when the Philistines came to strip the slain, they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. And they cut off his head and stripped off his armor and sent word throughout the land of the Philistines to proclaim it in the temple of their idols and among the people. Then they put his armor in the temple of the Ashtoreth, and they fastened his body to the wall of Beth-shan. Now, when all the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul, all the valiant men arose and traveled all night, and they took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Beth-shan, and they came to Jabesh and burned them there. Then they took their bones and buried them under the tamarisk tree in Jabesh, and fasted 7 days.
So, remember when Samuel, this was before Saul was king. When Samuel was the judge over Israel, he probably was the high priest as well. And the Philistines, Samuel was still a young boy at this time, I'm sorry. Eli and his sons, when the Israelites were going to war against the Philistines, these knuckleheads decided to bring the Ark of the Covenant to the Philistine war. And the Philistines defeated the Israelites, and they took the Ark of the Covenant and they put it in their shrine to Dagon, their god, right? They had it as like a trophy. Oh, we stole the Israelite gods. That's probably how they thought about it, because this was the Israelites' representation of God. It wasn't actually God, but they put it in their little altar room with the rest of their gods as a trophy. Now we see that Saul is dead. The king of the Israelites is dead. And so they have his armor in there as well. So there's like their Hall of Fame room that they put in things. Every time he defeats someone, anytime it's something that's remarkable or a big feat, this is where we do to kind of like commemorate our valiant efforts.
Exactly.
One of the more confusing parts of this chapter is that when the way Saul dies, you understand what I'm saying? It's like,
Who killed Saul?
who killed Saul? Because
Or what took him out?
what took him out? So he was injured by the arrow.
And then basically he was fatally wounded.
He's fatally
Severely
wounded
wounded.
by the he's severely wounded by the arrow, right? And then he fell on his sword. You understand what I'm saying? And so that's based on this chapter. That's how we are. That's how it's kind of like how we are told that that Saul died. He fell on his sword, so essentially he killed himself. You know what I'm saying? And so I think in 1 Chronicles 10 they have the same recollection. Saul died by falling on his sword because he did not want the Philistines to say that they killed him. But my thing is this, right? We still kill you. That's like Saul wanted his own satisfaction to say that technically y'all didn't kill me. But when the war was over, they see all y'all dead. You understand what I'm saying? If ain't nobody say that they physically killed him, they could just assume, well, you're dead anyway. Or they'll look at his sword and say, oh, he fall on his own sword. But we still kill you, bro.
But at the end of the day, too, it's like, again, if me and you go to war, it don't matter how we die. We got killed at war.
Facts.
And so at the end of the day, the enemy kill us.
Right.
No matter how you tried at the technicalities of it, Earl and Nakhaz went to war and they died in the war.
It's Abimelech-esque when the lady threw the pot on his head or the rock or whatever, right?
The millstone.
And what he say? What he did? He killed himself, right? Because he didn't want it to be said that he died because of that woman throwing the rock. I'm just like, okay, I mean, you dead, bro. You don't know what people can say about you.
The dead know nothing.
Right.
So again, sad way how Saul went out. And again, it's kind of like just to reflect on how Saul's whole arc. Essentially, like all of 1 Samuel, he started with so much promise, so much vigor, so much timidness. When the people was looking for who was going to be the next king, he was hiding behind the supplies or something.
Yeah, something.
He was hiding behind those things and just scared of essentially being king. But then we see, again, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And the man who was a servant of God, the people's champ, the king the people wanted, the king the people begged God for, he started to feel himself.
Yep.
Started to get drunk off his own power.
Yep.
And it's so funny because God told the people what would happen when you get a king.
Yep.
And the sad thing is exactly what God prophesied to, and you can say the sad thing is prophecy has to be fulfilled. It happened. That's exactly who Saul turned out to be.
I mean, it is sad because this was the first king of the Israelites.
The very first king.
And you failed miserably. Like if we go story by story, bro, from 1 Samuel 13, I think, to now, we only have like one really good thing that Saul did.
That was right at the beginning.
And that was right at the beginning. Every chapter was like pulling teeth. Every time God asked Saul to do something because Saul could do what he want to do. Saul like, all right, I'll fight this war that you want me to do, but I got to get the glory from this, bro. I might put in the most minimal effort, but I is the boss and I call in the shots. You understand? If God literally, if God literally gave them over into our hands, I making it seem like I'm the reason why this happening because I'm an arrogant guy. I erecting altars for victories where God already, anyone could have done it. When my son go and lead the charge, I ain't making it about me. I'm saying that
no one else could eat.
I issuing decrees and I forcing y'all to do things my way. Even though my son already started this and I could have been did this, I'm supplanting all of his efforts because I'm now putting a decree in motion where I call the shot and all of this victory is going to be about me. And it's because of these things that quickly into his kingship, God, through the prophet Samuel, prophesied that his kingdom would be stripped away. And it wasn't until like 42 years, he had a 42-year reign, even though early in his reign, he was promised that his kingdom would be taken away. you know.
Man, and again, like, it's almost like the first deception of mine. You know what I'm saying? Because what God said is going to happen, whether you want it to or not. But sometimes God don't tell you exactly when it gonna happen.
No.
God said if you eat of the tree, you will surely die. You will die. You will die. You eat from the tree, you could die. God didn't say how long it take you to die. He didn't say it take 900 something years for you to die. But you eat off the tree, you could die.
You will die.
You will die. Fuck. You see, it's early on. I said to say like the serpent deceived Adam and Eve. Yeah, right. But God told Saul, your kingdom can be stripped away from you.
Given to someone better than you.
God told David, you will be king.
Yes.
God didn't ever say when.
When or what you got to go through to be king.
Exactly. God didn't ever say when. So now, again, it's like, are you going to take God at his word? Or are you just going to lean onto your own understanding? And we see, it's a certain sense, David lose faith along the way, but we're going to see, last episode, we say he was at his turning point where he had to come back to God. But to Saul is like, bruh, you got to live with this thing, like this thought, knowing that I am going to be king, but I mean, I'm going to lose my kingdom. It's going to be stripped away from me, but just not knowing when. And you could be like, maybe God changed his mind. Because you tell me that 10 years ago. You tell me that 20 years ago, I still sitting on this throne pretty. So
Saul didn't want to bow out gracefully, bro.
No.
He wanted to fight it. Like, he wanted to make God wrong. He wanted to prove God wrong, I should say.
And then to double down, when you figure out who God's next anointed was, to go out of your way to try to snuff out that light.
Yeah, I'm trying to kill you, bro. Every chance I get.
Trying to kill you. Trying to kill my son, who's supposed to be on my side, but on your side. Yeah. Trying to kill him. Trying to get him to turn on you. I done throw multiple spears at you. I done swear to God I could kill my son. Like, man.
So, I mean, I just feel compassion for Saul, but it's like you have no choice but to define Saul as a wicked king, a wicked Israelite king, because he was not holy.
Saul kicked it off.
And lastly, so the witch of Endor was correct, saying that tomorrow you and your sons will die.
Man, it's like, sure.
Right.
But like, what you really prophesying?
See, that's the thing. It's not prophecy when it's things that's in your control. So basically, I could say, Earl, tomorrow I'm about to go to Chick-fil-A. Well, tomorrow would be Sunday. So, but anyway, let's say tomorrow I'm going to Wendy's, right? That's in my control, bro. That is completely God has given me the free will to go to McDonald's tomorrow. You understand what I'm saying? And so,
man, and then even the whole Witcher Endor thing, right? Something I was reading to after the pod, right? And it was showing like how big of a disrespect it was for God that Saul, who was the leader of his people, the ruler of his people, was bowing down in front of a spirit.
The ruler of God's people was bowing down to the devil.
Essentially. In front of the whole universe and was watching that. And so again, like Saul in this low moment, bowing down to the enemy, about to fight God's enemy when God is on your side. Of course, the enemy had Saul already wrapped down his finger.
And that's the point I'm making. So at this point, Saul had already pushed God away to the point where he could have been given completely over to the devil. So it was in completely the devil's hands, whether he wanted to kill Saul or not. You understand what I'm saying? Because Saul had already waved off all of the protection that came with God. God has already turned his back from me, not talking to him through Urim, through prophet, or through dream. If it's completely in the devil's control, whether you're going to die or not, then, it's like with Job, right? God said you could do anything to Job, I just don't kill him. If the devil had come to Job and say, tomorrow you can get a rash, and tomorrow the devil makes sure a rash come on his hand, that ain't prophesying, bro. That's in your control. You understand what I'm saying? Plenty of times they say, tomorrow I can go to work. And what I do? I go on to work. You understand what I'm saying? And so I ain't even lying, bro. Like, if you look at all the circumstances upon which they die, bro. Like, but this was going to happen. Like, this ain't nothing spectacular. Like when the prophets, when Samuel prophesied, or when that random prophet in I think the first or second chapter, when they come to Eli and say, because of all of this, all of your descendants are going to die in the pride of life, in their prime of their life. That's a prophecy. You understand what I'm saying? And we see it happen. That's why when Ahimelech and all of them people died when Saul killed them. That's a part of prophecy, bro. I don't even know if we outlined that, bro.
We did.
Oh, okay.
We did.
A part of bro.
We did.
Prophecy, bro. You understand what I'm saying? So this The Witcher Endor, I feel like we're gonna have to revisit this because we're gonna have to revisit necromancy.
Yeah, just talk about like how. But we just need the whole topic on just that spiritualism part of it because it's so.
It's a lot to unpack, bro.
Yeah,
bro. Like, and it's like this topic is bigger than or of equal time in terms of minutes on the pod. It's actually a longer discussion than to discuss this chapter of the Bible that we dealt with, the Witch of Endor. But it's still related because she did say through the medium, whatever, the spirit, whatever said, you're gonna die tomorrow. He died tomorrow. You understand what I'm saying?
And again, it's like, anyway, so try self-fulfilling. Anyway, so now we're going to read 2 Samuel verse 1. And again, we said when we first started Samuel, but originally it was just one scroll. So 1st and 2nd Samuel wasn't a thing. It was just the scroll of Samuel in ancient times. And so it wasn't until modern times that they, split it up because it might have been too long, and it's kind of hard because y'all left Psalms as one big scroll. We just ain't.
But that's actually a collection of different stuff.
Y'all could have split up the Psalms 1 and 2.
Yeah, no.
I feel like
1, 2, and 3. They needed 3 books of Psalms at minimum.
Exactly. So, but they split up Samuel, and so now we're getting the 2nd Samuel 1, but it was still a part of one big scroll originally. So that's why it's still going to be a one episode. So. And it actually adds a little bit more context to the story of Saul and Saul's dying. So now, 2 Samuel 1, chapter 1, verse 1. Now it came to pass that after the death of Saul, when David had returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, so David, just to Kazi's point, now we're starting to see this timeline. Saul was already dead. David now was coming back to Ziklag from the whole plunder of the Amalekites and getting back their sons and their daughters and their wives. On the 3rd day, behold, it happened that a man from Saul's camp with his clothes torn and dust on his head. So it was, when he came to David, he fell on the ground and prostrated himself. And David said to him, where have you come from? So he said, I have escaped from the camp of Israel. Then David said to him, how did the matter go? Please tell me. And he answered, the people have fled from the battle. Many of the people are fallen and dead. And Saul and Jonathan, his son, are also dead. So David said to the young man who told him, how do you know Saul and Jonathan, his son, are dead?
This is some heavy stuff. You telling me I need facts, bro. How do you know this, though?
How
do you know this?
How do you know this for a fact?
Right.
Like, is this second-hand information? Is second-hand, first-hand?
Right.
Like, how is your involvement? You say you fleeing from the camp.
Right, because I about to react to this, right? But I need to know that I'm reacting in the proper way. Now, if you was the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th hand in this information, if this have to go through a bunch of people, I can't react. I can't trust that it's true. I ain't wasting my tears and my sorrow on this. You know what I mean? I need this. I need facts, bro.
Exactly. And the young man who told him said, as it happened by chance, as I happened by chance to be on the Mount Gilboa, there was Saul leaning on his spear. And indeed the chariots and the horsemen followed after him. Now when he looked behind him, he saw me and called to me, and I answered, here I am. He said to me, who are you? So I answered him, I am an Amalekite. He said to me again, please stand over me and kill me, for the anguish has come upon me, but my life still remains in me. So I stood over him and killed him, because I was sure that he could not live after he had fallen. And I took the crown that was on his head and the bracelet that was on his arm, and have brought them here to my Lord. So now if we look at the story from this angle, one, it was a Amalekite. And we see the chapter started off with David had just returned from slaying the Amalekites.
Yes. So this is a very peculiar, this is a very interesting turn of events, though. No, but I don't want to cut you off.
No, keep going.
All right. Number 1. In 1 Samuel 30, oh wait, was it 31? Yeah, 1 Samuel 31 and 1 Chronicles 10. They both said that Saul fell on his sword. But the Amalekite is saying that I saw Saul falling on his spear. Right? And so that's number one. Number two, in 1 Samuel 31, they say he had been wounded by the archers and he died on his sword. But this guy said, I saw you on a spear and you reach out to me and say, hey, kill me. And then you end up killing him, right? I'm like, somebody lying, somebody stretching the truth here a little bit. You understand what I'm saying? Now, every time I read this, I just be confused as to what the truth actually is, right? But the Bible twice say he fell on his spear. That's how he died. Now, this random Amalekite run straight to David, right? Saying that he killed Saul. He killed Saul like he was doing him a favor. Now, to me, it just seems like when there's a death in the family, like an influential person dies, right? And the will is not set in stone. It in disarray, right? And everybody trying to be the first responder because everybody trying to benefit the most from this. Or if I'm the first one to get to the will, I could doctor the will good enough so I could get it all. When somebody step down in office and all of the people who trying to supplant others, they trying to do some slick stuff just to get in power. This guy is assuming that David is going to be king. And now I want to elevate myself to David. One, because I'm the first to bring him the message. And two, I come giving him the crown as if, like if someone had given Saul David's head, Saul would have rewarded them. This Amalekite is assuming that David is going to reward him by telling David that, hey, I killed Saul. You understand what I'm saying? And so with that type of, what's the word? With this type of incentive in mind, knowing that there's rewards that may come with this, you can see why someone may be lying in this position.
No, I mean, because it's two ways to look at it from my perspective. One, the Amalekite was lying. That's the most probable case because the Bible already saying two other instances from the Israelite sources that
Saul died on the sword.
Yeah. So now the Amalekite probably happen chance was on the Mount Gilboa.
Because the Bible does say he was from Saul's camp. This Amalekite.
Exactly. So he was there, and so now he's saying, okay, Saul died. Let me hurry up, try to steal the crown and the bracelet before anyone else come, and let me try hurry up and find David as a prize offering and a blessing. And the funny thing about it too is, if you do believe the Amalekite story is true, which and to me it's just not, it's so crazy because then at that point Saul would have been killed by the very people he was supposed to wipe out. The
Amalekite. Right.
And so, but still, like, I think the Amalekite was just looking for clout.
Because even how he said, as I happened by chance to be on Mount Gilboa. I just so happened to be in the neighborhood.
A big war happening between two enemy nations, bro.
You obviously ain't no popular soldier to be around the king like that, bro. You understand what I'm saying? Because how you said like the king say, who are you? Like he don't even know who you is, right? So you just so happen to be near the king in this war, untouched, right? And the king come to you and say, hey, come kill me, this and that and the third, right? You kill him and then you fled. Ain't no Philistine was trying to kill you or nothing like that. How you do all that, bro? Who are you, bro?
I still want to know how you even get the braces and the crown, bro. Because I'm like, because in the other versions, the Philistines was right there ready to grab the body and everything.
Right, and he said the horseman was coming hard after Saul and all that. So all I saying is, he probably noticed Saul was dead, like first out of all them people. And the Philistines probably might not even care about him that much because he ain't an Israelite, he's an Amalekite or whatever. Or he might have really just seen him dead. Let me get this, let me get that. And I out.
Skedaddle.
You understand what I said? Or, because the Philistines cut off his head, they might have lost the crown and he pick it up or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And so, again, it just shows the Amalekite story don't stand up.
Yeah, it's a weird story.
So now we see.
Hold on, one more thing.
Go for it.
It feel like he lying because everybody knows Saul of a spear, right? So the more plausible story is that he fall on his spear, but that wasn't true. He's fighting with a sword this day. You understand what I'm saying? And it's like, I ain't gonna say you would remember for sure if he'd fall on a sword or not, but it's a fact that he fall on the sword. But you saying spear, whatever, bro.
Is in verse 11. Therefore David took hold of his own clothes and tore them. So did all the other men who were with him, and they mourned and wept and fasted until evening for Saul and Jonathan his son, for the people of the Lord and for the house of Israel, because they had fallen by the sword. And so now we see David still mourning for Jonathan, but he's still also mourning for Saul, because even as his mortal enemy, he still understood the importance of Saul as the king of Israel, God's anointed. Because remember, David had 2 opportunities for sure to kill Saul.
Bro, I had a friend who just passed away, right? He just fatally, murdered and stuff like that. But this guy wasn't always my friend. Like, we grew up in the same neighborhood, and he was my friend. He was a very close friend. But me and him ended up getting into a fight, like a fist fight, over basketball, petty stuff, right? And it's like, it should have never got to that. I didn't want to get to that, but there's pride involved. It was high school and stuff like that. And it's like, our feud, it was stretched out too far, bro. It was going too far, bro. It was going too far to the point where I didn't feel like I was safe, and we all live in the same neighborhood. But his pride was really hurt. You understand what I'm saying? But the whole time, I really wanted my friend back. You understand? This was my dog, bro. We was tight, bro. But I had to, I couldn't show weakness, because I know they would take advantage of that and try to beat me up when they see me and stuff like that. Years later, we ended up squashing the beef, but we never reconciled. We never sit and talk and say, bro, it didn't have to get like this and that and the third. It's really the fact that people was around when we fought, and the outcome wasn't really how he wanted it to be. And so he wanted his reputation to be better than that, because he come from a family, like they gangsters and stuff. Like, I come from a middle class family. Like, we ain't outside. You don't see my mommy like arguing with people and stuff like that. Like, we like quote unquote classy type of people. So it's like, you ain't beat me to smithereens. Like, that look bad on you, right? And so from his perspective, he just couldn't let it dead because his reputation, right? But to me, it's like, but I didn't want to fight you to begin with, and I don't want to continue to fight, bro. Like, so anyway, he tried to terrorize me and stuff like that, but I still love this dude to death or whatever, right? We squashed the beef, and I was happy. And just recently, he passed away. I spoke to him last year. We was talking about music and stuff like that. But like I say, our relationship was never the same, because I just could not trust you to be civil in certain things, bro. Like, you and I, bro, if me and you have a disagreement, bro, we don't wish each other harm. You know what I mean? Like, even if you do something that I sincerely do not like, bro, like, I don't want to hurt you, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like
I appreciate that.
Yeah, bro. Had to get it off my chest, man. I've been meaning to let you know where we stand, bro. But this the thing, though, bro. He passed away, and I cried, bro. This was 2 weeks ago. I cried for a very long time, bro. I was in public, inconsolable. It's to the point where strangers was trying to console me, bro. Like, people I don't even know, bro. You understand? And I was very sad, because I just had so much, like, it was just like unanswered questions, and like, I just didn't have closure on a lot of things, bro. I just feel like, bro, what is life, bro? How could this be the ending? Like, in your mind, everything always has a happy ending and this and that and the third. But the point I'm trying to make is this, bro. Even though we was feuding, bro, and I quite literally had to stop coming on the park, bro, because it was not safe for me, bro. Like, that's the type of situation. I don't get too deep into it, but I could not come outside because I know it was not gonna be safe for me, bro. But in the back of my mind, I wanted peace, bro. I didn't want to double down and say, no, I can make it unsafe for you, or I can turn it up. I was in a position where it was me and like 10 of my boys. We was in a basketball tournament. He was playing on the team, not knowing these people was my boys, bro. I come to the game, bro. I could have, bro, the tables was turned, bro. You understand what I'm saying? I could have, you understand? I could have jumped him or something like that. And he dapped me up. That's how we squashed the beef. Because he realized he was outnumbered. And he realized he was doing too much when he had numbers, bro. I dapped him up. And that's how we squashed the beef. We never say sorry, nothing like that. Because, men, they don't want to put their heart on their sleeve. He just shake his head, dap me up. And I was like, yeah, Sam, straight, bro. We ain't got to talk about this no more. But when I try to talk about this with other people, bro, a lot of people look at me like there's no reason for me to be sad that this person is dead now because of the fact of how bad he carry on with me. You understand what I'm saying? But that's not why I'm sad, bro. I forgive all of that, bro. I sad because, bro, salvation is the most important thing, bro. That's what we talked about earlier, bro. I don't have evidence that you cared about that. You understand what I'm saying? Like, even past our situation. I don't have evidence that you cared about that, and I know I care about that. And I feel like if we had more time to spend with each other, I would have expressed that to you. But our relationship had to come to an end early in our friendship because of this feud. And I just feel so uneasy, bro. Like,
Some pettiness, yeah.
bro, it's just so petty, dog. It's so petty, bro. So like with David, I feel why David would cry over Saul, bro. Like, Jonathan is your boy. Now you can miss your boy. But Saul, it ain't had to be this way, bro. Like,
It really wasn't supposed to be this way.
David was a light to Saul. Saul was living in darkness. This was his light. And because of the demon presence around him, he pushed that light away from him to the point where it was the point of no return. And now he is dead, bro. That is sad, bro. Bro, ain't nothing. Even if this your mortal enemy, bro, we should not rejoice when our enemy fall, bro. Not because God said it, you know. But if you really love your enemy, you would want them to be in heaven, bro. Even though this person caused you harm, bro. Even though this person stressed you out in life, bro. If you really love them, you want the best for them. And what is the best, bro? Their salvation, being saved, bro.
Amen.
Them to be able to see God, you know. And so I personally understand why David would cry over Saul during this time. Because in David's mind, he was mentally mature enough to know, I don't have no beef with this man. Even though you want to kill me, I'm not gonna stoop to your level. I could have want to kill you back, but I would be the same as you. You ever seen them movies? The person go to kill the bad guy, and then he stop and he say, I ain't even gonna do it. Because if I do, I'd be no better than you. Like, it's corny in the movies, right? But it's actually true, bro. You trying to kill me, and I think that's unreasonable. So when I have the opportunity to kill you, I'm gonna kill you back? Would that not be the same thing that's happening? Killing for killing, you know? And so we see David actually, you can see that David actually care about Saul. I wish, David probably saying, but I wish I had my father-in-law, the guy that I met. You understand what I'm saying? Like, the guy could have learned under, the guy could have, you know, be around and just help to win battles and stuff like that. But that was taken away from me because of his own demons that he fighting, you know?
Man, oh man. It's a powerful analogy right there too, though. So where were we?
Verse 13, and then David said to the young man,
who told him, where are you from? And he answered, I am the son of an alien, an Amalekite. So David said to him, how was it that you were not afraid to put forth your hand and destroy the Lord's anointed? Then David called one of the young men and said, go near and execute him. And the young man struck him so that he died.
David ain't easy, bro. David ain't easy, bro.
So David said to him, your blood is on your own head. For your own mouth you
has testified
against you, saying, I have killed the Lord's anointed. And so the funny thing about it now, you can see how his lie came back and bit him. Because you just said, you killed God's anointed, but you didn't. You didn't, but you wanted to add some razzle-dazzle on the story, take some of the glory to make it look like you could be looking good in David's eyes. But now it backfired because you thought David would have been celebrating and happy that you were bringing him the news that not only the Saul is there, but here's the crown, here's the bracelet. No, you're going to be the next king for real. Like, now it's your time to shine. And to his surprise, David wasn't happy.
Nope.
David was crying.
Yep.
Crocodile tears.
Yeah.
And then the switch flip and say, hold on. Who you was again? An Amalekite.
See, because it ain't add up, you know. Because an Israelite probably would have the better sense than to do that. That's probably why this Amalekite was able to do that. Because he had no competition in doing that.
And then, bro, like, who is like, what is the Lord's anointed to you?
Right. He wouldn't know. Like, he wouldn't know the relevance.
Exactly. Like, you don't understand how this thing go with God. Like I'm saying, you from a different culture, you worship different gods. Like, you don't understand the significance behind this. You just heard that David is that guy on the block. Who next in line? Let me try getting good with the next king.
And
right?
That's exactly what happened. I believe, and I'm about to verify this, but remember when David was in Saul's camp, and the guy was like, let me just hit him once. I won't strike him twice. Let me just kill him. I want to say that person was also a non-Israelite, but I'm trying to remember. Abishai?
Was Abishai.
Yeah, Abishai. Anyway, Probably not. I probably making that up, but yeah. So the point I'm making is like the Israelites under normal circumstances, bro, they should understand the significance of God's anointed. You understand? But this person who is a descendant of an Amalekite, he wouldn't have known, and so his mouth testify against him. So he signed his own death warrant.
Facts, and it's like the lie you came up with was the lie that cost you your life. And then so now we see in the rest of 1 Samuel 1 is essentially a song. And the title here is The Song of the Bow. Then David lamented with his lamentation over Saul and over Jonathan his son. He told them to teach the children of Judah the song of the bow. Indeed, it is written in the book of Joshua. Oh, the beauty of Israel is slain on your high places. The mighty have fallen. Tell it not to Gath. Proclaim it in the streets of Ashkelon. Lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice. Lest the daughters of the uncircumcised triumph. O mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew nor rain upon you, nor fields of offerings. The shield of the mighty is cast away there. The shield of Saul, not anointed with oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan did not turn back. The sword of Saul did not return empty. Saul and Jonathan were beloved and pleasant in their lives. And in their death, they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles. They were stronger than lions. O daughters of Israel, weep over Saul, who clothed you in scarlet with luxury, who put ornaments of gold on your apparel. How the mighty have fallen in the midst of battle. Jonathan was slain in your high places. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. You have been very pleasant to me. Your love to me was wonderful, surpassing the love of women. How the mighty have fallen, and the weapons of war perished.
So Abishai was actually David's cousin, and he was an Israelite.
Yeah, I just Googled that too. I was like, yeah. But yeah, man, like, see, Jonathan's still gone out serving his country, being pseudo loyal to his father. Saul went outside,
and then Abinadab and Malchishua.
Yeah,
they all died together. I mean, it would make sense though, because like for David to be king, then you know.
Well, again, it's like we talked about to like make sure like no one else had a claim to the throne.
Yeah.
So and then that's remember when Jonathan made that. And we gonna see that story, but to come up in a couple chapters. But we see that's why Jonathan made that pact with David. Like, hey, when I die, preserve my line.
Right.
Like preserve my line. So. But like, where's the like what do you think is the biggest lesson in all of this? These two chapters. I mean,
let me see. So the last chapter they went out to war. Well, first of all, thou shalt not bear false witness. You know.
Oh,
definitely, because
that one came back.
Yeah, no, the Amalekite, he probably would have been alive today.
Well,
not today.
His life would have been preserved a little bit longer.
Right. He probably would have lasted a little longer than that day. You know what I'm saying? Had he been, one, had he respected God and his anointed, and then two, had he not bared false witness, because his story just wasn't adding up. And I think that kind of frustrated David even more, to the point David was just like, who you is again? Oh, Amalekite? Oh, yeah. I don't know if I can really trust that. But also, bro, the overall theme, I feel like Saul is like probably like the main character in the book of 1 Samuel, even though David would be the main character because, you know, David have more chapters without Saul, right? But then Saul have a few chapters without David, like before David, stuff like that. So, I don't know, they co-leaders or whatever. But the thing about it is we see the character development of Saul. We see David's character development, but in 2 Samuel, we see it even more. David become a rock star in 2 Samuel, you know what I'm saying? Like we see the full King David, because we don't see David as a king. This is early in his arc. But overall, it's the idea of actually giving your gifts to God. So God gives his gifts to us, right? So you might be a talented painter, singer, XYZ, right? So God gives us gifts. But at the end of the day, we need to give our gifts to God, because our gifts can actually exclude God in a lot of ways from our life. You know, we see Saul was blessed with the opportunity to become king, right? But his kingdom was a snare to him. First of all, Saul wasn't a prophet when he became king, and that's why people were so shocked when they found him prophesying a few times. He prophesied, and people were shocked. It's like, who? Is Saul also among the prophets?
Saul among the prophets.
Right. And so he wasn't a prophet, but he wasn't a sorcerer either. You see, at the end of his arc, he stretched out to a point where it was a point in time in Saul's career where he would kill witches.
At the beginning.
Right? And now you're at a point where you are actually relying on the people that you would once kill. And Exodus does say, do not suffer a witch to live. So Saul was following the Torah at some point in time. But then we see where Saul was blatantly breaking the Torah. Saul was erecting statues for himself. Saul was killing children for the sins of their father. You understand what I'm saying? Saul was doing a lot of things that was just anti-God, anti the Bible. And Saul should have had that instruction. He used to get instruction from Samuel. He even tried to kill Samuel. That's how you know Saul was actually beyond the deep end. He had jumped off the deep end, figuratively speaking, because he had allowed his pride and his ambition to be the number one thing in his life. And even before it got to that, Samuel had already told you, bro, isn't idolatry like divination and rebellion like witchcraft? I might be mixing up the two, but it's idolatry and divination, rebellion, and witchcraft. It's four of those things. You feel me? Like mentioned. And so we see that was Saul's Achilles heel. And we see it accentuated every chapter. We see Saul get worse and worse and worse and worse until his final stage was divination and witchcraft, literally. First, he was just being rebellious and idolatrous. But now we see him being...
It manifested
into witchcraft, bro, in the literal sense.
And for me, the lesson is because I just reading the Song of the Bow again, and it keeps on saying how the mighty have fallen. And then I just ask myself, at what point did Saul fall? Because he died here, but he fell so far, so way back, that this is just the fruit of the labor that you have already sown. Because I look at back, when did he fall? And you kind of touched on it. He fell when he started to turn his back on God. He fell when he exalted himself above God. He fell when his pride became like idolatry. His rebellion became like divination. I think it was in 1 Samuel 15 or 16. But that's when Saul actually fell. That was when he fell. That was when the mighty have fallen. When the mighty turned his back on God. And now we see, however decades later, was when he actually died. And to me, that's so it's so powerful, because something that he did years ago, and quite literally the night before, was when you really fell. Everything else was just running its course at that point. And it's just like a call to us, when are you, do you know when you're actually falling? Because a lot of times we find ourselves in these circumstances, in places that we shouldn't be. We talked about this last episode. But that's when you're in that slippery slope. When you're trying to take the credit away from God. When you're saying it's all about me. When you're trying to make it all about you. You're doing that. You're not consulting God. You're saying, I know better than God. God said this, but that don't make no sense. So I'm just going to do it my way because this would make sense. That's when Saul really fell. And now we're just seeing the ramifications of it.
David is no longer at large. The enemy that has hunted David for years fell upon his own sword in battle. This is a bittersweet moment for David, because he lost his best friend Jonathan, as well as the king, whom he respected greatly. But on the other hand, he now has the opportunity to become exactly what he was anointed to be, king over Israel. Problem is, there's still a rightful heir to the throne that would beg to differ. But we'll talk more about that on the next episode of A Breath of Fresh Air. Tonight's episode included voice acting by your hosts, Earl and Nakhaz. Remember to go ahead and research on your own in order to get a more firm understanding of tonight's episode. And if you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. You can follow us on social media at Abreathoffreshairpod on Instagram and BOFAPOD on Twitter. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next week.